I want to suggest something to be added to Hearts of Iron 4 in future that I'll feel like it will satisfy a lot of people in the community. The idea is when you right-click and justify for a war goal, you have an idea. Instead of a conquer Casus Belli, you have something like minor skirmish or limited conflict, something along those lines, okay? So you'd click that Casus Belli, and then you get the same list of states you want to basically justify on. In the current iteration of the game, justifying on multiple states doesn't even make even sense. It's just more expensive and it spikes world tension. It's just stupid. But what you do basically is you have a similar war goal system like in EU4 or CK3. You basically justify on what you want to take based on the cost and the time. Obviously it will scale because it'll not be a cheap endeavor. And instead of a total war scenario, which we get in HOI 4, why not have a situation where you have a limited conflict? The conflict is only between two nations, and when one nation wins, definition of win is going to be difficult because it has to be a war score based system. The land that was justified on will be given to the winner. It is kind of like a border conflict, but the problem with border conflicts is they're really junky and clunky, and positioning of the troops on the borders is a bit weird, and you don't have any control of who's attacking, who's defending, and what divisions to use. It's all a bit weird and random at the minute with border conflicts, but that's the closest mechanic that's in HOI at the minute that's comparable to what I'm describing. Anyway, when the war will end, so in this case it'll be a limited conflict. Obviously it's going to cost a lot because it's going to be political power intensive, the idea of declaring a war and not upsetting the world. But then if you are victorious, you get that land. So it's not basically a total annexation. And of course, there'll be a limitation of how many states you can justify on. It'll be like 3 or 4 maximum, and you can't do lots. The idea behind it could be is if a minor conflict doesn't have an immediate resolution, aka a white peace where everything goes back to normal, or there's a victor that takes the land, the defender can escalate it to the League of Nations or something, and therefore create World War II. So it has a get-out clause. It doesn't allow Germany to bully all of, I don't know, Switzerland and Austria and all that. The idea is you have an option now to declare a limited war strategically to obtain some kind of land. But then if you can't achieve your objectives, you see the consequences, potentially. Allies, boyos getting involved. People want an option to be able to declare war, take land, without causing World War II. And I understand that HOI 4 is a World War II game. It's all about major conflict, total war. But people just want an option where they can do it like maybe a more limited one. How many limited wars were there during this period? I guess you're looking at Ethiopia, you're looking at Japan, China, aren't you? I mean, initially you're going to say, well, this turned into total war between China and Japan. Yeah, it did, but it wasn't initially meant to be that way. It was meant to be, Japan was meant to secure its objectives and therefore take northern China, but then China wouldn't surrender or give up the land because they knew what had happened in Manchuria, and they also know what happened across the northern states of China. Finland too. Finland is actually the best example for this because it is a limited conflict. It is a war for these states, isn't it? Oh my God, that's the perfect example. That's the perfect example. There is no actual reason strategically in HOI 4 why you need to acquire this, and this, is there really? Because I know that was the reason, the justification for war, that they thought that Finland was too close to one of the major cities in Leningrad, so that's why they justified for this territory. But from a HOI 4 perspective, there's not really anything that makes much difference. You could just stack this up really high, couldn't you? I guess it is kind of vulnerable. It's on the border, I guess. Peru-Ecuador war. It's interesting, that war, because it's not actually in HOI 4 base game, isn't it? You only see it in mods. Isn't it for these territories, maybe? I can't remember which one it is. I think at the very start of the game, Ecuador controls these two states, I think, one or two of them, and there's a war between Peru and Ecuador, and Peru wins. But at the start in HOI 4 in 1936, Peru already controls them. The war's just literally been ripped out of history. Censorship must. I said that wrong. Censorship much. There we go. I got it second time. There's nothing on South American base HOI 4. Yeah, that'll come for a DLC in future. It'll happen one day. Limited war seems to be more a function of a military weakness than they intended. Yeah, there needs to be lots of mechanics baked into it as well to make it justified. Like maybe there's like a bar at the top of the screen that represents white peace, and if it's not achieved, then it causes pressure and world tension if the war has not been concluded. Think about this though. Think about the modding capabilities that feature will add. That means future conflicts after 1945, which always had that same resolution, would be possible in HOI 4. Imagine Millennium Dawn with that mechanic. All wars after 1945 aren't total wars. They're all basically wars that initially have some conflict for several months and then get resolved over the negotiation table. Imagine that ability to mod that in for Millennium Dawn. But Millennium Dawn mods are all clunky, aren't they? Because they're all total wars and don't really make a lot of sense. Don't take away people's ability to play the game, strategically make decisions before escalating to total war. Obviously, a limited conflict would be limited For instance, if world tension is above, let's say, 80-90%, you can't declare a limited conflict. Because at that point, we've already reached the tipping point, so therefore you are causing a normal war to happen. So it's just basically an option early game to be able to do some conquest, grab some land, and expand a little bit. And people love to do that because people like to start as, let's say, little old Hungary and then make your borders bigger. Because it's fun. It's fun. I think if a country is obviously way stronger than the other, then there should be a white peace mechanic for the smaller nation, definitely. And there should be an escalation mechanic. For instance, Germany declares war on Yugoslavia, and Germany has a really hard time getting through Yugoslavia. There should be a white peace mechanic for Germany and a pressure for them to sign the white peace. And therefore, if they refuse, then that will spike world tension, causing France and the UK to join the war against Germany. There should be consequences if they don't follow through. And that, I guess in a weird way, that is the League of Nations mechanic, isn't it? It's the modern day NATO. It's the idea that nations will coalition against other nations that are try to throw off the balance of power. I don't understand why isn't there a League of Nations system in Hoi 4? There's the mechanic for, there's naval treaties. Naval treaties work kind of like League of Nations in a little way, don't they? In the way that there's like all nations agree on what the maximum amount is for a ship. If, for instance, if someone steps out of line, they get a free caster's belly against them. Obviously, the mechanics needs to be a little bit more complex than that, more thought through. But that just gives it a random example, you know? I don't know. I would really, really, really be excited about a limited conflicts feature in Hoi 4. I understand there will be lots of ifs and buts and triggers and maybes. It can't just be done an unlimited amount of times throughout the world. There are consequences to doing it. Yeah, I would really like that to be in the game. You all agree with me in the chat. Well, no argument there then. I mean, to be fair, let's talk about something else as well. Peace conferences and guarantees both need reworks. They need to be way more complex than just this arbitrary, if we declare war, we'll join the war, no, war, maybe. You know, there needs to be more to it than that. At the moment, it's too unbelievable. A diplomacy expansion, yeah, but as much as I'd like that, I feel like the community wouldn't be bothered because, I mean, it's a game about war. Since we're talking about League of Nations, we'll need some sanction system or something like that. Yeah, I feel like it would, yeah. There need to be, like, mechanics about curtailing people and embargoing and etc, etc. Yeah, I feel that's true. I feel like the meta people would ruin those mechanics. They wouldn't care about that, though. Try and understand right now, the MP meta community doesn't care about the development of Hoi 4. Now, I don't mean they don't care, like they don't want to see it improve. They have their own mods. They play their style how they prefer. In the old days, the difference between a meta multiplayer game and a single player experience was a little bit blurred because they were very close with the odd mod or two to try and clean up multiplayer. But now they play their own multiplayer experience playing Spot mod and all the other mods out there. So at the moment, multiplayer Hoi 4 isn't the base game. They're two completely different things. And I appreciate that because at the minute, I can say stuff about Hoi 4 and not be talking to multiplayer. It makes my life a lot better, put it that way. Because when I talk about Hoi, I'm talking about single player, not multiplayer. Or vanilla Hoi 4 multiplayer with friends, but not like high tier, try hard multiplayer, memery. Isn't it crazy how you double your civs in 3 years? That's something else I've talked about too. I feel like there should be an upper limit of GDP in this game. Because at the minute, I feel like you can get an unlimited amount of civs and you snowball continuously. AKA USA. That's all my 2 thoughts on that. And back to the game.